Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan. And this video is going to be all about the first head coach firing of the 2020 season, and that is my Texans finally firing their head coach and GM and probably a bunch of other crazy things because that man had so much power. It seemed like it would never arrive, and
it's here.
It's here.
And let's get a toast going. I don't know if you guys have anything in those cups.
No, I do not. But
Cheers to Bill being gone.
See, like I'm a Texans fan, but it really seems like that everyone around the league, at least fans around the league, are like happy. And
you feel bad for being happy that someone's job has got taken away from them, but it was about time.
Yes.
So that toast, especially for Ryan, that was one he's been waiting for a while. So Ryan, you can keep talking because this is your team.
Yeah, I mean, there's two aspects you have to look at, and you got to look at the actions he did at GM, and then you have to look at the coaching part of it. Because actually, looking at the coaching part of it, it wasn't really all bad. Like, I have some statistics here from Bill O'Brien's time in Houston, and I feel like we're going to be bashing him this whole video. Let's just say a few somewhat nice things.
I have some good things.
Well, yeah, in his tenure with Houston, 4 AFC South titles, 4 playoff appearances, 5 winning seasons, 52 career victories, and 21 wins in 2018 and 2019 combined. That's the second most in a 2-year span in franchise history, which is like 18 years, but okay. So, anyway, there is some good things, and that was something the Texans shared on their Instagram story, so certainly classy by them to acknowledge the good things, because there was some good things as head coach, but I really think that GM Bill O'Brien played a huge role in getting Coach Bill O'Brien fired, because if Bill O'Brien was just a coach, I don't know, would he still be the coach of this team? Would he not be on as short of a leash this year? Maybe, but because of the moves that he's made, obviously everyone knows about the Hopkins trade, but it's not just that, this team has, the highest payroll. They're spending the most money, I believe, of any team right now, and they're 0-4. They're without a first and second round pick. And even though Bill O'Brien is gone, like, you can get rid of him. That stops the bleeding, but that doesn't, heal the wound. DeAndre Hopkins is still gone. You still, have to get David Johnson going. You still don't have a first or second round pick. You still have spent all this money. Some of the money well spent, some of it questionable. So, I mean, I'm sure I'll go on a few rants throughout this video, but I do want to hear what you guys think as well about this, because I follow Texans fan pages and stuff, so I see the kind of Texans fan perspectives, but I'm curious to hear an outside perspective, so I want to hear from you guys too.
Before we go into that, I just want to say, go check out our podcast. It just came out today. On the podcast, Ryan goes into the story of how he learned that Bill O'Brien was fired, and it actually happened right here where we're sitting. Tyler was not here. Me and Ryan were both sitting here. I was there for half of it. So
you weren't there, okay?
If you want to hear that story, go check out the podcast. You can find it anywhere that you find podcasts, I think at least. It's called the Touchdown Table as well. Go check that out. Do it now. With that shameless plug being said, let's move on to what I actually have to talk about, and that is Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien, he's throughout his time with the Texans, he's been just about average. Ryan mentioned 52 wins. That's compared to 48 losses. That's a .520 win-to-loss percentage, which is not that good for a head coach that was with them for 7 years. You're hoping that a coach that has been with you for 7 years would be having more success. There are many 9-7 seasons in that span. In fact, from 2014 to 2016, they went 9-7, and then a 4-12 season there in 2017. Then 2 better seasons, 11-5 and 10-6. The previous 2 seasons, it looked better. But starting off this season, it just has not looked good. You saw the moves that they made in the offseason. Those just did not help. With Hopkins gone, that was a big one. But some other things they've done as well. They traded for some wide receivers, and those receivers are not going right now. They have not been able to do anything at the moment. I'm sure Ryan has seen that a lot. I'm sure he was going to talk about it if I did not. So many questionable things that have been done by Bill O'Brien on that GM perspective. And also from a coaching perspective, I'm sure he's not hated by his players, but I feel like the connection between Deshaun Watson and him it's not great. It's not like Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes level stuff like that, where they're just in sync. It's not like Brady and Belichick when they were both like not mad at each other for being so good. I guess that's the perfect way to say it. But I think they just needed some new perspective on this team. They needed a change after an 0-4 start. Something needed to change. It's not going to be Watson. He'll be there for a while. There's really nothing else they could change except for getting rid of Bill O'Brien. Maybe it will cause a spark. We'll see. Romeo Crennel now, the head coach.
At least for the next 12 games.
Yeah. So, at least, I mean, we usually don't see interim head coaches get the head coaching job very often
rare.
because the team is kind of already dead before they get there. So there's not much you can say. But occasionally we do see that Romeo Crennel is 3 years old, so I highly doubt he's going to want to be coaching at that age, but he seems like he's still mentally there. Maybe possibly he will. But I want to say one good thing about Bill O'Brien. You guys hit on it a little bit earlier on in this video, but Ryan said it, and this was a huge point. GM Bill O'Brien was bad. He was terrible. His tradings were all bad. It seems like they lost every single trade they had. They don't have a lot of picks because they gave up picks and don't have players that are good enough to account for that. And then they traded their best wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, away for nothing. And they decided to go with this approach where they have multiple receivers. And that decision alone, instead of just the DeAndre Hopkins getting the ball, and instead doing this multiple receiver, get everyone involved, that could be a decision that ultimately got him fired because it just has not worked out in the first 4 weeks at all. But I will get to the good part now. You guys hit on a little bit as I said, but the coaching Bill O'Brien, although he doesn't seem like much of a player's coach to me, he seemed like a coach where even if he didn't have the best roster, he could still get some worth out of these guys. There was not much worth coming this year from him, but he was able to get these bad teams to, like Jordan mentioned earlier. Do you have still the records pulled up on that? And they had some good 9-7 teams. They got to 11-5 1 year. The 1-4.
Well,
one of the 9-7 teams made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Of course, that's actually one of his 2 playoff games that he won that year
against Connor Cook.
Yeah, I was going to say it against Connor Cook and that Raiders team that was looking so good until Derek Carr went down. But still, a playoff win is a playoff win. Another stat is that, like I said before, he had 2 playoff wins in his 7 years with the Texans and only went to the playoffs, I think, only 2 or 3 times. I mean, they won that division a couple times, but that's because the division wasn't all that good. But like I said, it was Bill O'Brien on the business side of things, getting too involved in that. He seemed like Ryan said this earlier, Emperor O'Brien.
Yeah, he had too much power. That organization needed some checks and balances. Yeah. Honestly, much power.
I'm sorry, but Bill O'Brien is not the other Bill that we've seen have success. He's not Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is the only coach that I think we'll ever see that can be able to handle the GM/head coach job like he has. It was way too much for Bill O'Brien. It seemed like it was all going to fall apart eventually. It did this year. They're 0-4 so far. Hopefully Romeo Crennel can get that changed. But ultimately, the Bill O'Brien era is ultimately over.
And, I mean, another thing is, Coach O'Brien, as far as being on the field and coaching, I think that this year there really was some questionable things. They really didn't quite know their opponents. I feel like they didn't look in sync. They looked sloppy. And, for weeks 1 and week 2 against tough opponents with the unique, start to the season we had with very limited training camp, no preseason, I'll cut you a little slack. But remember, every other team was in that same situation or similar situation as well. So at the end of the day, you got to have your guys ready. You got to know your opponent. And, looking at a guy that Bill O'Brien probably wanted to do good for his own sake, David Johnson, I feel like they've tried too hard to get the running game going. And I don't know how much of highlights of the Texans games you've watched, but they try too hard to get the running game going. They say, okay, got to run first. It's like a rule. We know this is probably not going to work, but let's just run the ball. You have Deshaun Watson. Don't overthink this. You don't have Nick Mullins or Mitch Trubisky or Daniel Jones. You have Deshaun Watson. You have a very athletic.
Bill O'Brien was the one calling the plays until last week, right?
No, I think he got more involved last week.
I thought they had the offensive coordinator calling them, and eventually Bill O'Brien took over.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Even for a Texans,
there's so much dilemma inside that organization.
Yeah.
It's just been very strange with the power struggle and all that. But ultimately, I said ultimately a lot. I'm sorry, but Bill O'Brien lost all his power in that organization. That's what this video is about.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at that and. The running game for the Texans just hasn't been there. You look at David Johnson, 63 yards in the Vikings game, 23 yards against Pittsburgh, 34 against Baltimore, and a somewhat decent 77 against Kansas City.
197 on the year.
Yeah, so if the run game is not there, let Deshaun Watson do his thing. You have all these receivers. Deshaun Watson's got the arm. He's got the talent. So let him do his thing. Let him throw deep. If you notice, when you watch the highlights from the Vikings game, they were down 15 points in the fourth quarter, and then they had to start throwing more tempo, more deep throws, getting more guys involved, picking up the pace. That's when they started doing good. And the announcers actually said, if you're a Texans fan, you're probably wondering where this was. And sure enough, I actually was having that very same thought, I kid you not, at that moment. So when they had to do it, when they had to throw and had to get going and had to be, assertive and not just do, HB dives every other play, they got back in that game and almost won it. So I hope Romeo Crennel and whoever our coach is for the long-term future, I've already heard rumors on that, I hope that they let Deshaun Watson do his thing, run when you need to, but also don't wait for the run game not to work. You should go out and throw. Let the league know you're throwing now. So I want to see that with Deshaun Watson. Let him do his thing and get back to the promise.
Yeah, and real quickly, I just wanted to say that the situation in Houston, it kind of reminds me of what we saw with the Seahawks some of the previous years. They have one of the better quarterbacks in the league in Russell Wilson. And this year we have seen Russell Wilson break out. Now, he's always been a great player. He's had some breakout years, of course, but he is really just going off this year. And that is because the Seahawks are letting him throw. They're letting him unleash. They're unleashing him, letting him do stuff. As Ryan was talking about, that's what the Texans, I think, need to do with Deshaun Watson. At this point, the team is 0-4. They need to try something new. They really have nothing to lose at this point. The Colts are doing good in their division. They have to try something else. I think letting oh my gosh, I can't say his name. Deshaun Watson go out and show what he's made of. Let him sling the ball down the field. I think that is something that could lead to more wins for the Texans, or at least one win for the Texans.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is surprising to see that Bill O'Brien was the first head coach fired after all that we've seen in bad coaching this year. We talk all about this even more. We got into more things about this on our podcast. And speaking of our podcast, we have a guest today for this show, and there he is under the table. He's really tall, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see him. But he does our podcast with him. With us. I had a short moment there.
Too, yeah.
But his name is Brandon. We're lucky to have
you guys
him
actually get to see his face if you've watched the podcast. First off, if you haven't watched the podcast, like I said before, go check it out. But you hear his voice, now you actually get to see what he looks like. And yes, he's wearing a Packers jersey.
Yeah, Packers fan. We're Bears fans. He's Packers fans. Ryan's a Texas fan. It's spread all around. Brandon, you got any opinions about this Bill O'Brien?
I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think I don't know. Bill O'Brien has definitely screwed over that organization for a while.
That's a good way to put it.
The trades of DeAndre Hopkins. So yeah, I think it's a great move. Especially with someone with the resume of Romeo Crennel, I think it's a lot better for the team, and I hope it's going to work out for them in the future.
They need to change something, that is for sure.
A low clap to welcome Brandon to the touchdown table on the video here for the first time getting to see him. Good job there. I think that's all we got for today.
You got anything to say?
Any last words?
Hello.
Although he'll probably be back and cameo in some other videos that we make at some point. So expect to see more of Brandon, more of us. If you want to see more of us, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. Get notified every time we post a video. Like this video. That really helps us out. Comment your opinions about this Bill O'Brien firing down below. I really don't think there's much negativity with it. It seems like everyone agrees with it and is ready to move on. But there it was. He's gone. Bill O'Brien's gone.
He is.
Way to go, Ryan.
I thought the day would never
O'Brien
arrive. He's been there since 2014, and 2014 was really the first year I was like a full-fledged Texans fan like I am today. So he's been there as long as I've been a Texans fan, so it's kind of uncharted territory for me.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys for watching this video. Do what I said earlier. Make sure to go check out the podcast to see more of Brandon and us. And with that...
That's right.
Bye.
With that, we will see you guys later. See ya.